IDA, let's start off with a roll call. Dennis Meany,
Here.
Marlene McTighe. I believe Marlene's on video, so she's present, but not a voting member tonight. Is she on?
She's not on yet.
Okay. And she is not present. Bill Murphy.
Present.
Anton?
Present.
Paul?
Present.
Wanda is not present, but expected soon. So we do have a quorum. So the first item is the minutes from our meeting on November 5th. If everyone had a chance to read those, so can we get a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make motion.
Get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so fast. Next would be the CFO report. Amy Thompson. Amy?
Yep. Good evening, everyone. I'll start with the statement of financial position on page 6. Quickly, the cash balance year-to-date November was roughly $4.5 million. We did have a CD mature for $500,000 at the end of November, which we deposited back into our money market account at the beginning of December. No liabilities to speak of on the books. And net revenue year-to-date is $150,000. Moving on to page 8, budget versus actuals. Total revenue year-to-date $443,000. Majority of that is fees collected from Atlas Copco, CHPE, versus budgeted amount of $412,000. Total expenses $292,000 versus budgeted amount of $414,000. So we're ending the year strong. Is there any questions on the financials?
Bill?
That's it for me.
Nice, this nice one, you're making money, so that's all good, and you can never have enough cash on the balance sheet, which is good too, so, good job. Could I get a motion to approve the financials? Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so fast. CEO report, Kevin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. We've got a few guests with us tonight. We've got Doug McLean and Matt Bratton from Plug Power with us tonight, who will introduce a little bit later and make some remarks. We've also got Ryan Jankow from Jankow Development Corporation to talk to us a little bit about some of the housing development he's been involved in. And more importantly, we've got a young woman here who's here as a function of her civics class, I understand. Is that correct? Welcome here. We're glad to see people still taking civics classes. That's very nice. Let me just, first, we've got a very brief amendment from a former project that I'm not really aware of, 122 2nd Street Associates, and our bond counsel, Joe Scott, will talk a little bit about this. Joe?
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. We, staff and counsel, Chris Canada, my office, got an inquiry from 122 2nd Street, which is a straight lease deal that this IDA did back in 2015. It appears that they want an amendment and or some documents signed in connection with additional financing or potentially new financing. We have worked with them to schedule a call next week to get more details. So I would expect you would get some sort of formal request for the January meeting. Putting it all in context, not unusual to get these kind of requests. I mean, you have an interest in the property, so if they're going to do any additional bank financing, they typically need to get consent or approval by the IDA. We will need to double check your policy manual, but I believe you have a policy with respect to post-closing fees. And the major issue for us, and indirectly you on this kind of request, is just making sure there's no additional liability on the part of the IDA, and more importantly, that the company doesn't have any defaults with you with respect to any of their obligations under the IDA documents. We've seen in past circumstances where an IDA applicant has come to you for some post-closing approval, and they haven't done their filing with the IDA staff, and that obviously is not very receptively received, or they're behind in water charges or sewer charges, things of that sort. So we'll do some due diligence with Kevin and his staff to make sure that everything is up to snuff there. But You won't get anything formal until the January meeting.
Where is that project again? Refresh my memory. Where
It's Waterville.
Waterville, that's what I
Waterville,
thought. Yeah, okay, I remember that.
Yeah, it was a mixed use, housing, commercial, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, anything else, Joe? Any
No.
questions of Mr. Scott?
So we'll be back to you,
No,
Kevin.
sure.
Kevin, obviously, will be back to you, and Chris Canada will be back to you.
Yeah, and by the way, Chris sent his apologies, a little under the weather.
Right.
He dragged Joe in out of retirement to,
So you got the second string in, Tim.
It's like the NFL with the grandfather going in.
Well, I mean, that's what Zach told me. He's like, do I have anything left like Phil Rivers? You know, and I said, geez, I think I got a little more than he does. I think.
okay, let me introduce, we all know Plug Power, and you've seen some of the recent press, but let me turn it over to Doug McLean and Matt Grattan to talk a little bit about Plug Power. As you all know, we did a very large project with Plug Power, $140 million development out at Slingerlands in the Vista Technology Park, and tremendous benefit to the economy of the county with the construction that this facility drove and the jobs that were created by the construction. And as happens, the world changes, and businesses have to respond to those changes. And with that, I'll turn it over to Doug and Matt to make some comments about where you guys are and what's happening. We'll talk a little bit further about this in executive session too. So.
Thanks, Kevin. Again, my name is Doug McLean. I'm the Senior Director on the Global Infrastructure team. I'm in charge of all Plug's rooftops, capital improvements. I do oversee the operations at the facility in Slingerlands. I've been with Plug now for about 4.5 years. So I'm going to just go through give you a little bit of updates since we last met. I think we were here in June, maybe June or July, right? Somewhere right around the half-year mark. And then Matt's going to speak a little bit on our community benefits, which I think we had some really good stuff happening here in the community in the second half of the year. So Matt, touch on that. So if you recall, for those who do, we were going through, we just recently made Slingerlands our headquarters, right? That's the Plug official headquarters now globally, is 125 Vista Boulevard. We have been in the process of a rooftop consolidation exercise where we're really taking we're really trying to capitalize on the efficiencies of that building. Originally, 200,000 square feet of it was going to be a warehouse. We've actually made that production area. We have taken our facility at 968 Albany Shaker Road. We have moved all of the manufacturing to Vista. So we do all the manufacturing that used to be at Latham at Vista Boulevard now. We have about 90% of our lab functions over to Vista. We're still in the process of moving some of the other ones back over. We have some electrical infrastructure that we need to install to be able to bring those completely over. So we are still investing into the facility, to make it right. On the 968 front, we do have crane stationary is in building 2. We did a short-term lease with New York State, but for building 1, but we expect to have that taken care of as well. And then for those who don't know, Rossetti just actually bought that facility. So they're our new landlord. We met with them last week, and I know they have some plans for the facility too. So, State British American was another office that we had in Latham. We moved those folks all over to this. We have that building as well. So, just bring that up because we're not leaving empty buildings behind, right? So we're putting bodies in. Clifton Park, we had a warehouse up there. We moved that to Gilderland into the Northeast Industrial Park, and we actually just leased another facility in Gilderland. So we actually have 2 warehouses fully operationally now. We moved everything into those facilities, so we have a little bit bigger footprint in the county as well. So that's kind of on the rooftop consolidation end, but probably the biggest thing with Plug here in the second half, I think probably everybody is aware, is our change in leadership. I think one thing that is important to stress is this was a planned change. Andy has been planning, for quite a while to figure out what the strategy is, and It was always never gonna just, walk away from it. So Andy Marsh, who was our longtime CEO, he was promoted to executive chair of the board, chairman of the board. George McNamee, who was previous held, he's on a lead role now. Yep. And then Jose Luis Crespo, he is now will be our CEO. It'll be effective in March. Andy and Jose are working closely on kind of a transition plan and making sure that it stays seamless. Andy's,
He was an internal guy?
he's an internal guy. He's been with Plug since 2014. He was our chief, or is our chief revenue officer. So Jose is the one who brought Walmart, Amazon, those big leads. He's the one that's out there with those customers and interacting on the street. He was previously lived in Miami. He's in the process of moving up to New York. He'll be operating out of Vista. Andy's moved out of his office in Vista, but just around the corner, staying within Vista. So, we still have, we'll have both the leadership team, there, and then the rest of the leadership, stays intact. So I think that was really good. In November, we held what we call the Plug Symposium. That is our annual, status of Plug that we send, obviously with the trading company, that's what we send out to the world to let everybody know what we have done and where we're going. And that was really Jose Luis's coming out party. He led that interaction. I don't know if anybody actually came in, registered and looked at it, but it is on our website. You can go, if you go to plugpower.com, it said there's an on-demand button for Plug Symposium. You do still have to register, but you can watch it at your leisure, and it really provides a lot of good insight. Jose received very positive remarks on his enthusiasm and his interaction and his knowledge. So I think it was very well seen from the public globally on how that went. As far as Plug Business goes, in June we had just got we had some wins where we saw our tax credits were extended. Was a bit of a surprise, with the administration, but it was great and welcome surprise. And then in the second half, we saw a little bit of a slowdown there on the market and maybe some of the support. So you'll see some recent announcements. We had a supply agreement with NASA that we just done, and that was a big win for us because it's about 480,000 pounds of hydrogen, and it probably means nothing to anybody in the room, but that number is, while it sounds large, is a small number on the percentage of what NASA actually uses. So NASA has, as you can imagine, very similar to what we did a couple of years ago with Microsoft, they have a checklist of requirements that you need to be able to meet to even become a vendor for NASA, right? So we were able to go through and check all the boxes and actually be qualified and be able to, have this award of the NASA agreement. So that opens up a big opportunity for us to continue. So right now what we're doing is we're supplying liquid hydrogen to their facilities in Ohio, and that's about those 480,000 is about 1% of the hydrogen that NASA uses. So, and that's $2.8 million. So if you look at the exponential growth and the potentials there, now that we're in with NASA, we see that there's just an opportunity. And as we continue to build our hydrogen network, you see how that strategy will just go. And that's really what we have been focused on. That's a little bit what Jose talks about at the symposium, is building the market for hydrogen. When we had started this venture here in the last couple of years, it was, we saw a steep incline on the potential growth. And then really, like all renewables, we saw with, wind especially and offshore, that steep growth kind of is slowed right now. So we're pivoting a little bit. We're working on growing the existing markets. We're right-sizing our distribution network. We've slowed a little bit on the plants because we have enough within our network right now. We have a plant in Tennessee. We have one in Georgia, Louisiana, in Tennessee. So we have enough right now where we can control our own destiny as far as our delivery. We did sign a new agreement with a new supplier so that we're able to make sure that we don't have a shortage of hydrogen. And then we're capitalizing on these new opportunities. The second announcement that came out a couple of weeks ago was with the data centers, right? So everybody knows how AI is taking over the world, and we have all these data centers that are going. Well, the data centers share a a lot of commonalities with the infrastructures of our hydrogen plants. So really with this partnership, which, there'll be further details announced, but it was just a taste of how we're looking for those immediate returns, where we could have a hydrogen plant in over 10 years, maybe we're going to see the return, in a shorter time, being able to capitalize on infrastructure that we already did. So, that came online, that was a couple months ago, and we're continuing to work out the deals on that, but you kind of just see how we're going through and, maintaining, our progress right now and looking for the opportunities to capitalize on those short-term wins.
Thanks, Doug.
Yep.
Just before we turn over to Matt, one of the things Doug talks about the shift in the alternative energy business, and Doug mentioned offshore wind. I'll just remind the board that we had over $2 billion of potential investments in the ports of Albany and the ports of Queen for offshore wind manufacturers. The guys who make the towers, the blades, the cables, the nacelles, and all of that evaporated overnight because of change in federal policy. So, it's pretty commendable that a company in the alternative energy business was able to pivot and live to fight another day. So, this is tough times in the alternative energy business.
So, good afternoon or good evening, everyone. I'm Matt Grattan. I'm the Director of Community and Workforce Development at Plug. I do most of the work associated with our community benefit planning in our workforce development strategy. So I'm not the one actually out there recruiting the employees, but I'm working with our talent acquisition team and trying to ensure that we have the relationships with the training providers, and we're still doing community outreach engagement. And as we continue to, the important thing for you to know is we continue to evaluate what our particular job availability for us to be able to create jobs or to backfill positions as individuals are leaving. I think all of you know that access to talent right now is extremely challenging and difficult, and we have to be very creative in how we are looking at and assessing talent and creating pipelines. So what we've been doing is we continue to evaluate where federal policy is shifting the renewable energy market, as Kevin just alluded to. What we can't do is just say, okay, well, for now, we're going to put workforce development and community engagement on the back burner and not do anything. That's not going to help us in the long run, and it's not going to help our engagement and commitment to the county and the community as well. So what we've done is shift our focus a bit more on pipeline development and working with youth and educating youth about opportunities, not only at Plug in understanding what hydrogen is. I talk to a lot of young kids, and I ask them what's name some renewable energy sources, and wind and solar. Maybe some were savvy will mention battery. None of them mention hydrogen. So we have a huge opportunity and challenge to be able to continue to provide education. So we are still very active since Doug and I came last June and spoke. October 7th, we were again participating in the Career Jam event at Hudson Valley Community College, where we saw 1,500 middle school kids come through, and there was 50 or so exhibitors there with interactive exhibits and educating students about hydrogen and fuel cell technology. We, in the fall, November 11th and 12th, we actually did two events. November 11th, we did a manufacturing career exploration event in the south end of Albany at the HBCC South EOC Center. And we did that in partnership with HBCC and SUNY Schenectady. They brought their mobile manufacturing training lab and had that parked out in the parking lot. We had the New York State Department of Labor there with virtual reality goggles, so individuals got to be able to put on VR headsets and experience what the different manufacturing environments look like and what are some of the skills associated with that, and being able to do that in a VR setting. And then we talked about Plug. We were there along with the Center for Economic Growth, who was promoting their new Real Life Rosies program, which is a pre-apprenticeship manufacturing boot camp program that is available to individuals from under-resourced backgrounds, totally tuition-free with some stipend payment availability. And that was our goal of this event, was to be able to promote the Real Life Rosies program as a pathway to get in. And if we're not hiring a plug, you know, any Albany County manufacturer or manufacturer in the region, you know, can take advantage, because we're all looking for, you know, for talent at different levels, as I've mentioned. So that was a very successful event. We probably had about 20 to 25 visitors there come through the event at HBCC South. The next day we were at Bethlehem High School. Doug accompanied me with that. Bethlehem High School did a whole manufacturing career exploration day for all of their students. Owens Corning was there, Sabic was there, many other, there was probably 12 to 13 different exhibitors at that event. We had some of our hydrogen fuel cell radio controlled cars. Kids were engaging with that and really trying to make the opportunities around educating students in hydrogen fuel cell technology fun and associated with that. So we're still very active in the community in trying to ensure that we are priming the pipeline so that when things do turn around and we know that we're going to be hiring again, you know, we're set to do that. We can't be reactionary and wait until that happens and then try to build programs and build engagements. The last piece I'll talk to very briefly is we continue to work with Capital Region BOCES on the launch of this new program that's called Emerging Technologies. And that is a program where students, it's a one-year program. They are seniors, juniors and seniors from different school districts, and they are doing a half of year technician study for the semiconductor industry, and they're doing a half a year of study associated with hydrogen fuel cell technology. And the hopes is for Plug that by the time these students graduate in June, we've started with a very small cohort. There's 7 students enrolled in this program, that we will be able to be looking at seeing if 1 or 2 or 3 of those individuals could come join Plug through our registered apprenticeship program associated with that. All these initiatives continue to move forward, you know, and we are absolutely committed to be able to ensure that we're priming the pipeline and that we're ready, again, as we have these ebbs and flows in our industry demand that we know. So we're very upfront with all the individuals. When we met with folks in the South End, we said, you know, presently we are not hiring for entry-level technicians, but we do anticipate that hopefully to change. And when it is, we want you to be ready for that. And that's why we continue to do these programs.
Great. Thank you. Any questions for Matt or Doug? They're gonna hang
I got a
around.
question for Matt. I remember when we were originally, you know, talking about the build out of this, CDTA played a role, I think, in trying to get transportation from the city up. How's that working out? Is there like a bus line that actually is
Yep.
able to transport
Yeah, we
people
actually-
from the city up to?
Yes, we have the agreement with CDTA, so we provide all of our employees free bus rides
That's
through the
right.
program. I can't remember CDTA's program, but whatever what that program is.
Passport.
Passport. Yeah, so they all have that, and we did set up a route from downtown Albany
Good.
to this. So,
So,
yeah, that's
That's
and that actually brings, so even from around, depending on where they're coming in, they do have to go to Albany first to get to this one. But that's up there.
And then you mentioned on the production side, the NASA contract, a
Yeah.
1% roughly of
Yeah.
the capacity. What's the capacity of Plug? I mean, you're able to, if they were to say, hey, you know, we want to jump to 2%, you know.
Oh, yeah,
you
so
have
that's,
capacity to-
so we're doing right now, I think we're at 50 tons per day
Okay.
of hydrogen is what we're producing through our own network between all of them. So yeah, as that continues to grow and depending on where NASA is, that'll depend on that. But that's a huge number. And actually the chip fab is, that's a high user of hydrogen.
Global Foundry?
Yep. Yeah, in that industry as well, they use hydrogen a lot, which I had just recently learned, so that's another opportunity that
So would Micron out of Syracuse be a potential?
I don't know if,
I can just, I know that in some of their initial documents, they talked about the use of hydrogen, and aspects, and we've had some connections with ESD, but I don't think we're at the point yet where we're probably can begin to have strategic discussions. We're certainly open and available to, to do that, but, I don't think they've got to the point where they're, beginning to look at how the infrastructure would be built out and how that would be, but.
Good.
Do you anticipate any more layoffs at this time?
No, so right now, we are status quo for this year. And then next year there is, as we're finishing our budget in anticipation of the slight growth, just not at the same.
Wanda?
Yes, thank you. I really have two questions. I heard you mentioned community benefits. Was that you?
Yes.
Okay, could you tell me what do you mean by that? What is it?
Well, anything associated with education of the community around opportunities for career, opportunities with training, to get into job trainings with Plug Power. It also relates to our community. We have a small community relations fund that does many grant programs to nonprofit organizations. So it's youth engagement, and engagement with the school districts in our community. It's really about being a good, corporate citizen, and in terms of how we as a corporation are benefiting the community. It was part of a bigger structure under the Biden administration or the previous administration, where community benefits were mandated and required for any type of competitive proposals for federal funding.
Okay, so what can you tell me what the community is? Give me a name.
What is the community?
Yeah, who's the community?
The region, any surrounding, but we certainly are starting out by focusing on the immediate areas in and around our facilities. The
Immediate.
city of Albany and the county. Certainly.
So have you given out any, you said, I guess you have some type of grants or something. Have you given any out yet?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Our community relations committee and grant program has been active for about 2 to 3 years, and then each year in the report that I provide to the county, it outlines the organizations. I can get that data. It outlines specifically the organizations that are within nonprofits that are within Albany County that we have provided funding.
Okay, I would appreciate that. The other thing is, can you tell me what your numbers are as far as what your workforce looks like? Women, black, white, men, can you?
I can certainly provide that. I don't have the percentage breakouts.
Absolutely, I understand that.
Any other questions for Plug? Okay, great. So let's move on. Next item. Many of you, particularly our elected officials here, are acutely aware of some of the dynamics going on in our community as they relate to housing, and primarily the lack thereof, and in various ways, shapes, and forms. I understand the legislature had quite an active session the other night with some housing advocates. But Mike and I have spent some time on this, and I think we're going to see, I know we're going to see an increase in the request for the IDA to get involved in housing projects. Many IDAs around the state do this. We've done it in the past. One coming up very quickly is the so-called Tobin's First Prize Center that was just talked about in the business review. They will be coming to the IDA for, financial assistance, primarily pilot agreements. But joining us today, we have a very dynamic young man who's been very active in the housing field in various aspects of housing as well. And in particular, the so-called 55 plus housing arena for those of us who were of that generation. It's of particular interest. But with that, I'd like to introduce Ryan Jankow from Jankow Development Corporation to say a few words about that. And Ryan?
Yeah, so we're active in the capital region, building multifamily apartments. We own and operate maybe around 1,000 apartments right now, with a couple more 100 in the pipeline. The biggest thing that we're seeing, right, especially specifically the 55 and over, is the baby boomer generation, right, living longer. Part of this housing crisis is baby boomers are not turning over their houses as fast as they used to be, right? They're living in their houses longer, they're living longer. And, a lot of them, especially like in the city of Albany or Guilford, there's just not a place for them necessarily to go. And any of the 55 and over housing communities we have right now, they're 100% occupied on year-long waiting lists. Right? One of the things we're looking at is not only market rate apartments, but we're looking at like a specific 55 and over housing that we feel that will start to generate. If we could take baby boomers out of their current houses, keep them in the same neighborhoods or the areas that they're comfortable living, in a building that they feel comfortable with, people, their own age, with amenities, full with gym and pools and arts and crafts and, Zumba classes and all of these things. When you build a community, they tend to want to go there, they tend to want to stay, it's 55 and over, it's active community, right? And that's what we're looking at. Again, we're looking at the housing crisis. The new mayor of Albany just put out an audit that actually was really well done. And, the demand for housing that we need is just outrageous, and we just can't build them fast enough, right? The processes are like taking too long, finding land, tariffs, supply chain issues. And again, specifically in the capital region, a lot of other areas across the country, they have ebbs and flows, up and down. Albany's pretty flat, right? We have the government, we have hospitals, we have colleges, we have Regeneron, we have Global Foundries. We have a lot of people coming into this area, and we just have a massive housing need that we just can't fill. So we're looking at all these different products, again, from workforce housing to low-income housing, to market rate housing, and then specifically 55 and over, because, in that audit, the largest demand right now is really 55 and over, right? There's a lot of people that we're trying to keep here, and we just do not have a product for it. So.
Great, thank you. Any comments or questions on this? This is going to be something, as the county executive and I have been discussing the kind of refreshing the county's economic strategy. And the last go around, we really didn't focus or address the demand for housing. I suspect that this next go around, this is going to be at the forefront. I know the legislature has been spending some significant time and energy on putting together a program. And I don't know, Dennis or Wanda, if you want to say anything about that, about when that's likely to, I don't know, is the local law passed yet, or is that still?
Monday,
I'm sorry?
it passed.
It passed this Monday.
Mhm.
So then we'll,
Well, no, the public hearing. The public hearing.
I'm
For
thinking
the
of,
second phase.
for the second
There's been
phase.
2 phases.
Mhm.
First phase was declaring it a public purpose, which passed.
Right,
And now the second phase is the funding part of it.
which is gonna come through here,
For
the Alliance.
Right,
Mhm.
yeah. So that's probably sometime early next year.
okay. So I think, this is all in the way of, kind of preparing the board that this is going to be something we're looking at. It's different significantly in its composition to the industrial and commercial deals that we've brought to you in the past, like Plug Power or Regeneron or, Atlas Copco. It's a different way of thinking about these. I can tell you right now that the pilot agreements, and that's payment in lieu of taxes for our civics young lady here. They're going to require much longer pilot agreements. Joe, what would you say is a normal pilot for a housing project?
Well, part of it is, and you kind of alluded to it, Kevin, part of it is based on the length of the financing.
Right.
So if they're able to get, 10-year financing, then they're gonna want to pilot at least 10 years so that the lender is protected. But many of these housing projects get 20 or 30-year financing, and accordingly, they will at least request of the IDA, and many IDAs do work with project applicants for pilot agreements of that length. So you could be considering a 30-year pilot.
We have been, I would say who publicly, but we have been asked by one developer if we would consider a 40-year pilot. So this is gonna be a little different, so I wanted to kind of start to alert you about this. This is something we're gonna see. Ryan has done he's kind of done the whole gamut of types of housing, from, rehabbing two-family houses to, his latest project is a luxury housing project across the street from St. Peter's, which is quite an impressive development. But so this is something we're going to be bringing to you, and I suspect even at the next meeting, I suspect that this Tobin's First Prize project is gonna come to us at the next meeting. That'll probably be a 10-year build out, but the first phase of that will we may see an application for our January meeting.
Question.
Sure.
This specific project, did you say it was below market rate or
Which one?
the 55 and up?
Oh, this is not a specific project, but
Oh, okay.
these are.
Just in general, yeah.
But Paul, that is the seminal question here. Because many of these suburban 55 plus community, I don't know, Brian, what would you say a 2-bedroom rent would be?
I mean, a lot of them could be up into the $4,000 ranges, like the amenities, they're expensive. It's, to put on, you have a resident director doing activities, you have staff, you have a lot more maintenance people, the grounds are bigger. They usually do, whether it's food every morning, continental breakfast. It's expensive for some of these, buildings to put up and to run. So, the rents are up there.
Couple bucks a foot? What are you
Oh,
talking
yeah,
about?
at least, you're probably over $3 a foot for.
How many long-term jobs do you see in these facilities?
Not as many as we would hope for, because it's really, your property manager, resident director, maintenance staff, but it's really the stuff, then you have like the landscaping crews, and in the winter, you have snow plowing, all of your techs that are coming in, dealing with all of your HVAC units, electrical, updating the flooring. It's, and the housing unfortunately isn't, it doesn't put out as many jobs as, other, let's say industries. But for example, like, listening to Plug Power, when they're trying to recruit people to come, the biggest issue that they're gonna have is there's no places for anyone to live.
Right,
Right.
workforce housing.
Workforce housing, right? Depending on, their tier of what they're hiring for. Someone coming in who makes, let's say, on the executive level, there's no houses to buy, there's no apartments to rent. It's a big problem, just especially in the capital region. We are so far behind on housing.
And listen, just to bring it home, if you ever want your kids to move out of your house, you've got to make sure that there are apartments out there that they can afford to live in, right?
Can I
We love our kids, but not that much.
So now, where's this $4,000 a month place that you're talking about?
There's some in Clifton Park, there's another one up in there's one in Gilderland, there's some in Half Moon, there's.
Okay.
A couple.
Yeah, it's definitely, not any in the city of Albany, but
Ryan, are there any in the city of Albany?
maybe one or two, but not at
Yeah, right,
but at
right,
a different level, yeah.
But it's not a new concept in the city of Albany.
No, not a new
55,
concept at all.
right.
No, and there's a lot of people, especially, in the Pine Hills neighborhood, in Center Square, in the Buckingham, like, the people that want to stay, right? I mean, Albany, especially the city of Albany, is very walkable. It's a very walkable area, and there's no place for anybody to go, right? If you wanted to stay in the city of Albany, 55 and over, they don't really have any options.
So I have a question more to Joe. What is the nexus then between the goals of the IDA, which are economic development, to fund housing when the housing is, maybe it's helping economic development by providing workers for Plug Power, but what is the nexus? How do you enable that to be done through the IDA?
Well, I think you heard it from Kevin and you heard it from Ryan. I mean, it's an important piece of the overall puzzle. Housing absolutely doesn't create directly a lot of jobs, but any company looking to come into the area, that's one of the first things they look at is how much housing is there available for my workers? How many workers do you have available, and do they have places to live? So it's an important piece, and what we do when an IDA, and we've been doing housing projects with IDAs for probably 15 years, maybe 20. And what we do is we work hard with the staff and with the applicant to make sure we understand exactly what's going on with respect to that project and what kind of need it's supplying. So that if a particular type of job is going unfilled because you don't have a person in the community that lives there that can work at that wage, because there's no housing, affordable housing for that person in that segment. And so we work very hard with the staff, we work hard with the project applicant to put findings in the resolution to make it clear that this, while it's housing and doesn't directly create manufacturing jobs, commercial jobs, et cetera, there's an ancillary impact, whether it's downtown walkability or providing housing for a particular segment of job, employees.
This is the kind of thing we would expect to maybe hire a Camoin to do an economic impact thing, and then just that
Absolutely.
the direction of where the impact is might be just a little different than we're used to seeing in a
Right.
typical real estate deal.
And that's exactly the purpose of why we're asked Ryan to come in, because these are projects you have to think about differently.
I guess
This isn't jobs and just capital investment. This is,
I mean, to comment further on that, we've been in talks with, with economic development out in Syracuse because of Micron out Chobani, right? So because they have, these two major facilities coming, we've been out there over the last 6 months looking at all different plots of land because, they need thousands of apartments. If you think about the workers in Chobani, workforce housing, Micron, workforce housing, they're in the same boat, right? I mean, like, I think Syracuse is blowing up faster than anyone else right now, and they don't have housing. So now they're pulling people like us. We're out there looking to build housing for them.
Ryan, didn't Mayor-elect Appler's study identify a certain number of houses, units that they need in the city, or?
Yeah, the city of Albany needs another 1,600 units.
1,600.
And out of 1,600, 560 have to accommodate 55 and over.
Okay, so I noticed that you said Goodman Park, in Saratoga as far as the housing is concerned. And
For 55 and over, yeah.
For 55 and older. Okay, so as far as our investment, in this 55 plus, okay, where are we looking to build? Is it in Albany County? Or, because I'm trying to.
Yeah, Albany County. Sure.
Okay, so we're looking to build in Albany County. I understand what you're saying in regards to wanting to bring companies in, that will feel that we can stand, the housing need of their employees. I get that 100, and I do understand that, okay? And so we're doing this for business for Albany County?
Well, yeah, the only projects we do are projects in Albany County.
Okay,
90% of my projects are probably in the city of Albany.
okay.
And the problem we have is.
I notice I said Albany County,
No,
and then say
but
city of Albany.
specifically city of Albany. When you think about 55 and over, they want walking trails, outdoor space.
Mm-hmm,
City of Albany, we don't have any land. It's very challenging. When I build apartments, sometimes we're taking clusters of blocks and,
mm-hmm.
whether it's doing some demolition, to put something newer there, doing adaptive reuse. That's the biggest challenge in the city of Albany is it's not big plots of land like everyone else has that we could go put up a brand new project.
The one site that we did talk about before for 55 plus, close to the downtown SUNY campus and the Albany High School. Remember there was a plot there?
You may be going back a few years, I can't.
No, it was, well, sometime in the past year, but
Okay.
there was one location, do you remember?
No,
There
we
was-
we will talk about some things in executive session.
Okay, I'm just wondering, like, whatever locations that may be in consider, just to touch on where maybe you're going. The audit said out of the 1,600, 560 are needed. So how many would potentially, do we think could you be building in the city of Albany?
I mean, could we build in the city of Albany right now?
Well, like, do you have sites identified? Yeah, like, are we saying like, oh, if we do
We're
invest?
looking, it's not just that, I mean,
Yeah.
so my next meeting right after here is I have to go over to City Hall for an inclusionary zoning with the common council members,
Okay,
because we're working on that too.
okay,
But one thing that they actually, that we proposed, that they proposed is to exempt 55 and over housing out of the inclusionary zoning to make it feasible for us to do that, which
Okay.
could be a big help, so.
And so 55 and over in the city of Albany, is that what you said? But you also said $4,000 a month, you just meant in.
Yeah, I mean, if we build, so.
but that's comparison, right? The purpose of that number is just to say, for comparison, there's other
Right, if
locations.
people are leaving the city of Albany
To
to
go
go
pay
into
that.
Clifton, because they can't stay here.
Yeah.
We don't have 55 and over housing, you know, with what they're looking for in the city of Albany, that are
I get
going
that.
to Gilliland and Capitol.
But as far as affordable housing, how does that figure into this number?
I would say less amenities, right?
Yeah, so it's less amenities.
It's, listen, and Joe might be, Joe, did you do the work for the city of Albany idea on that 90-something $million affordable housing deal? Did the Hudson do that? Well, let me just,
I'm bringing up-
the affordable housing deals are very, very difficult to put together. They're oftentimes combinations of multiple tax credits, whether they're historic tax credits or affordable housing tax credits. You know, the capital stacks that they need to put together are torturous. I was talking to one of the affordable housing developers. I think is it the Regan family, right?
Yeah. Ringing the bell.
And this guy tells me that to put together an affordable housing deal, it takes him at least 2 years to just assemble the capital stack, get the tax credits approved by the federal government or the state, I think it's DHCR or something like that. They're very difficult transactions to put together. And his whole pitch was that that's difficult, but the most important thing is the management of the facility after it's built. That, you have various quality of managers, and that determines how successful an affordable housing project will be or not.
Isn't there a requirement in the city of Albany? As far as when you,
Or affordable?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's why they haven't had any development in the last 2 years, because we can't make any of our metrics work.
Right, a certain percentage has to be.
So that's why, my meeting after here is we've been working on it for the last 6 months.
Or something, you need one.
We're working on modifying it because they realized that what they proposed, the intentions are good, we understand what they want to do. But financially, you just can't make it work.
I mean, to be clear, there was a level percentage and then the common council increased the percentage, and that's the impact that it's had on housing development in the city of Albany, that increase.
And then we have tariffs now, and again, so in 2017 was when like the city of Albany had this inclusionary zoning, interest rates were also pretty much 0%. Now you're on the other side of COVID, interest rates, we're borrowing money at 6-7%, tariffs, supply chain issues, and the cost of, labor, everything's going up. So, whether it's an affordable housing building or a market rate building, it's costing us almost the same amount of money to put the actual vertical structure up.
Do you think there's a shortage of affordable housing?
I do. I think there's a shortage of all housing.
Right.
There's a shortage of all housing across the board, from affordable to market rate and everywhere in between.
But at the same time, did I hear you? I just want to get this straight. I don't sit on the council. I sit on the county legislature.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're looking to modify that their inclusionary.
They are right now. They have a proposal in from a couple council members, a couple of other them put in another, so we're all going back and forth, and they're actually asking us because, we're running our numbers, they're proposing. I think we're hoping some type of modification, maybe by the end of this year.
Okay, any other questions? We'll move on, we got a lot more to cover yet today. So with that, let me just turn it over to, our project manager for development, Clayton Besh, to talk a little bit about the former Altech steel site in Colony. As you know, the single best industrial development site we have in the county, but it's not without its challenges. So Clayton, you want to give everybody an update?
Quick update, and see if okay, the owl can see me, all right. Regarding the schedule to transfer the ownership of the Altech site from the county to the IDA and then on to an LLC, the county has agreed to wipe out all of Altech's past delinquent taxes and take responsibility of the colony taxes that will be issued in January of next year. So as a result, the transfer is expected in February, which will then make us the owner, make the IDA the owner, and then by extension the LLC, and that will trigger the insurance coverage and other programs. New York State DEC has released their 30% version of the site management plan. Now this is a rough outline of what excavations and clean soil capping will be required for the site. DEC is also still waiting for the Fish and Wildlife Department to complete the wetland report, which should be available next month. The final management plan, which is a guide to the safe and the DEC approved development of the site, is expected later in the spring of next year. And given that the National Grid's customer load assessment assessed, as I mentioned before, power of up to 60 megawatts potential for the manufacturers on the site, we are now working with NISO to start a system reliability impact statement for the Altech site to determine that the regional power infrastructure can manage that demand of such a facility. That study should begin in Q1 of next year and should take about 3 to 4 months. Are there any questions?
So Clayton, I'm sorry, so when will the IDA or the LLC, the single member LLC, take title to the site?
Likely end of February. So I got some.
And the timing of that, it has something to do with the imposition of 2026 taxes. I know Chris and Tom Owens were working jointly on the timing of that. Will that carry forward into the future and make the property tax exempt?
Yeah, and Joe could probably explain the details on this, but IDAs by nature are tax exempt. They don't have to ask for or get permission to be tax exempt. IDAs, once the property lands in the IDA, if there's no, current assessed taxes, which is why we're waiting, would be tax exempt going forward. Once we start to develop the site, we firmly, look to get this property back on the tax rolls.
Right, understood.
Once we own it, it's tax exempt.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, the only other thing, and I don't know if we really have to talk about this, is in your package is the 2026 calendar dates for the meeting. If anybody's got any major problems with that, you let Sarah know and we'll work those through. But with that, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my remarks. And if you could see where clear, I'd like to ask to go into a short executive session.
Sure. So with that, can I get a motion then to go into executive session? Can I get a second?
Second.
Joe, you want to just this is to discuss real estate,
Confidential.
Okay.
that the public knowledge of which could affect the value.
Value, yes.
Yeah. All right. Great.